Sorry,
Not here, is it?
I'll
I
find
don't know,
it.
do I have to say anything specific? Call to order of the.
Yeah, you have to see, and then just to record the time.
Okay, at 6:05 PM. And roll call, I think everybody's here except Adrian. So then, do we start with a motion to approve the minutes from June 20th?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. No members of the public, so I guess we'll just hold off on that in case. That's Santina for.
Oh, Tina, I've never. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Do you want to join us at the table?
You can sit at the table. Okay.
The STEM group?
No, okay, thank you.
Okay, all right.
For the chairman's report, I got into the email and the social media accounts, no emails of note. The one thing I wanted to ask if anybody is interested in having the committee kind of be represented at some relevant town meetings. So like Anya and I have been splitting the PTA council. I also think the police commission, if there is like traffic studies being discussed, that it would be good to have a member go. I think it's simple as you check the agenda, and if there's nothing relevant, there's no reason to go. But those are, I think they're Wednesday at 4 once a month.
That's the only hard part about it, because it is at 4 o'clock.
It is during like the traditional work day.
Which meeting did you say this was? Police commission.
Police commission. So if anybody would be willing to volunteer to do that.
Actually, I'll volunteer. I work from home and I'm a mile from here, so.
Okay, great.
Wow, thank you.
Mike.
Do it too, if, yeah, just put us like both on and
You know, if somebody's busy and then the other one can,
I forget.
that's great.
you just send us a link to that.
Yeah.
That agenda.
Yeah.
So I'll know.
Yeah,
that-
we actually get it to the bike and pedestrian committee, like,
Everyone but Adrian, yeah.
a couple days before,
Okay,
whenever it gets posted. So we get a notice to the committee email, so I'll be able to get that to you.
that'd be awesome. That'd be great. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Mike, and I heard someone else say that they
Yeah,
could do.
Sandy.
Sandy.
It's gonna take turns. Okay, great. And then the other one, sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
The other group is Sustainable Fairfield, like there's a lot of overlap in the goals. Okay, so,
So I had actually kind of been like auditing, I was like a volunteer on that committee. And when I was speaking with Mary, who happened to be here most of the time, she's like, oh my God, she asked if I would be the liaison, because that kind of ties in with my interest in that, and then she hasn't been able to make it, so I said that I would do that.
okay, awesome. And I think Adrian also attends those meetings, so between the two of you guys, she had said she'd be able to do that one as well. And then the last one I'm gonna look into a little bit more first, but Mary Hogue actually mentioned that the new Arts Commission in town is looking at doing an arts district in Fairfield. And so that would be a good opportunity for us to be able to give feedback on walkability and bikeability in whatever section that ends up being. It sounds like it's pretty preliminary, but I was gonna get some more information from Mark Barnhart before we set something up for that, so.
When is that meeting?
I don't have it. On my to-do list. Awesome, okay, great. August meeting, both Anya and I are on vacation in August, so looking, I think probably to cancel unless anybody disagrees.
It's fine. It's kind of a dead month. That's actually the worst for attendance.
Okay. Historically.
Right.
It's pretty much
checked
everybody's
out.
on vacation.
Yeah, all right, so we'll cancel that, and we'll see you guys in September.
It's a song, I guess, right?
And then the last update from me, there's an opportunity for the town to work with Sacred Heart. There's a Professor Anna Price in the public health group. She runs a few, like a class and then a graduate class, where in the past there was this project they did in Bridgeport. I guess a bunch of students in Bridgeport got upset about like their walk to school, that it was dangerous, and the students at Sacred Heart helped them like collect data, put together a presentation, go in front of their town government, and then they did like a phenomenal job and ended up being able to get like approval from their town and then also get funding through through different grants that the college and the town kind of helped them with. And so we've had some preliminary conversations where she might be able to use the same graduate team to come in and do a similar thing in like different areas of Fairfield. So I know she talked to Bill Gerber a couple of weeks ago. I think he has like a to-do to kind of find out who would be the right person in the town. But then the committee would likely have an opportunity to be involved on like kind of having to say like where, and also kind of helping with the data collection and stuff. So they'll just go and they'll sit at intersections and count the people who roll through stop signs, like a whole bunch of different things. So it's still preliminary, but there's an opportunity there, and hopefully it seems like it could be a pretty cool one.
Would they work in conjunction with that consultant that's being?
I think this might be separate, but maybe, I'm not sure. That's one of the questions I have. I'm not sure how that's really gonna
Sounds like
look.
there would be real overlap and maybe they could be,
I think the problem with the consultant is it's like long-term too, and this
Yeah.
could be more short-term. So we could look at it in a specific neighborhood and just kind of see how it goes. And then if it's useful and beneficial, we could then extend it.
And their credentials versus credentials of someone who'd be working with a consultant would probably be significant, significantly higher on the consultant end.
Well, maybe
Maybe.
even if they just help like coordinate it with data collection, right? Because you can sit there with a clicker, it's not hard to determine.
No, but I'm
who's the
saying
stop
from
sign, but then like
getting
to
involved
analyze
with the
the data.
consultants.
Right, and I
Yeah.
think like the professor usually takes on most of the analysts and the graduate level. But yeah, I think like it could just be an opportunity to have some bodies to collect information that could hopefully be useful in, creating a plan for that particular intersection or something.
And Sarah, the first selectman did reach out to me about that.
Oh, okay,
I
great.
don't know if there was a meeting last week. I was on vacation. And I just got back yesterday. So I did reach out to the selectmen, and I actually do know Dr. Price. She's helped us with some other projects. So yeah, he briefly told me about it. It sounds really great. So it's
Awesome.
like kind of like free data.
Yeah, exactly.
We do that for credit.
I think some of them do, yeah. So I think it's a
Makes
lot
a
of
big
their
difference.
MPH students, yeah.
Yeah, we should emphasize these are graduate students.
Mhm.
Yeah. We've worked with them. Santina and I worked together in Norwalk.
Yeah.
And we always found that if students were getting credit for it, they were a lot more reliable than
Mhm.
volunteers.
Yeah. And I also had a brief conversation with Mary Hogue about if there were people at the high schools that could potentially be interested through the Sustainable Fairfield or Green Team stuff. So if we get something rolling with the college students and then kind of supplementing it with interested, and she had a couple kids that she's worked with that she thought might be, so it'd be cool. Okay, does anybody else have a report?
I'll give a brief kind of summary. I called in today. Some of you remember a month ago, we had Christine Rao here talking about the issues around South Benson. So she had a follow-up call today. Unfortunately, I was 15 minutes late. I missed the beginning because it seemed like a really juicy meeting. But I virtually walked in on Zoom, and there was these detailed drawings of South Benson on the screen with like painted green bike lanes, raised crosswalks, new medians. And I couldn't tell, the picture of the town is very small, so it was hard for me to tell who was talking, but Christina Brow said it was the CFO who was talking. I don't know his name, maybe I should. CFO for
Becker?
Fairfield.
Becker?
Would that be Becker? Okay, sorry if I don't.
He's the
would have been-
CFO and the COO at the same time now, I think.
Okay, I don't know. I was just told, I was like, who is that? And Christine Brow says CFO. I'm like, okay, which I thought was kind of funny to be presenting engineering drawings. I thought that would be Bill Hurley.
Maybe like that was in his, because he's COO and just interim CFO, so maybe it was really more in his role as
COO
COO capacity.
So he was doing the presenting and there was like 3 police officers there. Again, I could barely see who was who. And then Christine Brown and Bill Hurley on the town side. And then there was 2, Christine Brow, the South Benson resident, and another South Benson resident. And they basically for an hour showed all these different angles of South Benson and what it could be, and then ended with, but this will be like way more than a 7-figure project, and we don't know where we'll get the funding yet. And I was like, why, we have these super detailed drawings, but we don't, so I have like so many fundamental questions about that, and I emailed Bill Hurley, I was like, could you send us?
Where it started, where it ended is, or did it go all the way? How,
It's old Post Road,
okay,
down to the Jennings entrance,
okay.
roughly, but.
It's like a big stretch.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
a lot of
it's a
pages.
mile and a half, or a
Um,
mile and a quarter.
I was just, yeah,
No,
I had
not
no
at all.
idea anything like this was being undertaken, and I was,
You're right, yeah, more like a mile.
But what was the genesis of that? Was the claim it was racing or?
it was a, yeah, but with the,
South
See,
Benson?
that's what I don't understand, because like people aren't actually racing, they're not like lining up on both sides of the street. I thought it was just, they keep saying drag racing, but I think
Yeah.
they're just talking about
Extreme
excessive
speed,
speed.
excessive
Excessive speeding.
Yeah, I think,
I mean, drag racing to me is like a
I mean,
completely
I don't know,
different
like when you're in your
connotation.
house,
And
it
then
happens on
at
Milton.
four,
Street, you're
there's a
in
stop
your
sign.
house,
Yeah,
you're-
yeah, and
it's
that-
pretty-
where it turns
Yeah,
left.
and anyway, but there's also been a couple of crashes too, I think,
Maybe they missed it.
in the area, like in that same
Oh, yeah,
area in recent, within the last like 18 months, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, one car went in, because my mother's friend, it was her house where the Audi lost control and went into the porch and like took off the
Yeah.
car.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That's on South Benson, right?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
out of,
so I'm gonna follow up with Bill Hurley, they gave him some feedback, and they said that we'll make updates to the drawings, and we'll aim to have updated drawings for Labor Day. So I'm hoping to get Bill Hurley to present these to us at our September meeting, so we can look at it, cause I said, when is the bike and pedestrian committee gonna look at it? He's like, oh, it's too early. I'm like, we're asking like 2 residents from South Benson to weigh in over anyone else months ahead of everyone. I'd be like this, I was a little just taken aback by the process.
who prepared the drawings?
Bill Hurley's, my understanding was Big Hurley, or at least Big
Yes, sir,
Hurley's
his
team,
office.
it was his office, I should say,
Engineering.
yes, engineering, yeah, the town. I mean, they're really impressive, it'd be great, if somebody did something like that around town, I mean, it was really quite different from anything we have, so.
Left hand, meet right hand?
So anyway, I have tons of questions, but if they wanna go forwards with something like that, overall, sure. I also have questions around like doing such major change on that road versus like a road that's more connective, like more central in Fairfield. Personally, I'm like, I wonder how much like pedestrian traffic that gives.
Traffic on that road. I ride through there a lot. I often see other people riding.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bike and pedestrian
Yeah.
traffic, because my boyfriend
Going
used
to
to
the
live on
beach,
Benson
yeah.
Place, right, like, so where it elbows off and it goes
Yeah.
straight to, he used to live like right on that corner.
Oh, and they're gonna add sidewalks too everywhere, and
Yeah,
improve the
and
existing
it's-
sidewalks, that was a huge part of it too. So the project was huge. But yeah, it's exciting, so hoping we'll see that in our September meeting.
Awesome.
And there was supposed to be a call like the next week or after our last meeting. Did that happen? I wasn't. able to
Yes, this is
participate.
call number 2 following that call.
Okay, they did anything significant? It was like,
I can, it just kind of feels like so long ago, it was like a few weeks ago. I mean, it was basically a conversation around whether or not speeding was an issue on that street, saying, Christina, the resident, saying, this is what we observed, this is what our cameras are showing, this is what we experienced, large amounts of speeding, policing well, but we don't have the tracker that was said, don't have a lot of speeding, but they also, I think Christine and others were hesitant they were really taking that data with a grain of salt, because they weren't sure, whether pedestrians are being filtered out of that data. So it was kind of a lot of the discussion about what was really happening, and I could probably email you more detailed notes. My memory is fuzzy from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly too, if they were collecting it from one of their black cat boxes, it's really kind of an outdated metric, that 85%
Well,
metric that they use. Right, I mean, because like we experienced the same thing on Villa Avenue, and that was actually my next question, like, is this just something that's going in the pipeline, right? Because I know, like, we've been waiting for a long time. And it would make sense if, like, for example, if this project went ahead of ours, if it was, everything fell into line, right? Because Villa Avenue hasn't gone forward because there's still tons of infrastructure work being done, so it makes no sense to put in medians and bike lanes when they're just gonna come and dig it all up in, 3 months anyway. So I mean, it's frustrating, but like, at least I understand,
Logic, yeah,
there's logic behind that.
yeah. I think that gets back to like, we need to kind of get a better list of engineering, so like people understand, to your point, the logic behind why some things are moving forward versus not. Yeah,
I'm looking at my notes from that meeting, a lot of discussions about speed bumps. Whether that's the right solution.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe there's like kind of neighborhood advocacy groups, because when we started the process with the police commission, right? My boyfriend, at that time, you had to go around and get at least 50 signatures or whatever. So, we went and we knocked on every single door. And so a lot of people came to us and contacted us through me through Nextdoor or other social media sites saying, hey, can you keep us informed? So I have a little distribution list, and every time there's an update from engineering, I distribute it. So there might be some neighborhood advocacy groups that we could tap into to help, maybe not formally, but at least help keep people
good idea too.
Informed.
That's all I had, I think.
Oh, the only other, the SS48 grant is still, we're waiting on the contract, so we don't have an update further on that. Anybody else have an update?
Just I have a question. So as part of that grant you just mentioned, they're gonna hire consultant to look at the whole town, right? So will that end up in a comprehensive plan? Because it just seems like now, like you got something going on Villa Avenue, now they got something going on South Benson. It's whoever screams the loudest,
Right.
they respond to.
Yeah.
And it's all over the place. It's not really coordinated.
That's
So will
the,
that change?
it
after
should,
this?
yeah. So that piece would have a comprehensive kind of plan looking at all the information, like crashes, neighborhood feedback groups, and it'll kind of inform like hotspots and kind of what to do going forward. Yes.
I mean, that's what engineering did with the street paving. And they laid it all down, here it is, this is for the next, 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, so don't call complaining, it was all analyzed. And this is when they're getting in, this is the timetable. So,
The timetable idea is what, I think
Yeah.
Sarah Mason was also talking about earlier, it'd be nice to have that more transparent.
exactly, it's just otherwise to hit it's just whoever screams the most and, and then, what do you mean give it to South Benson? We want it on North Benson.
I mean, that was my biggest frustration getting started with the stuff on Mill Plain is because it's like, that's how it works. It doesn't make sense,
Doesn't make sense.
anyway.
Because it's not like this intersection gets a score of,
Right.
6.5 on our 7-point, danger scale or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, moving on, there was some discussion on whether we would be able to change the meeting time to 6:30 instead of 6. I know Amy's in the city most days, right?
Yes, I mean,
So-
it was no problem, not a big deal to catch the 402. I certainly
Didn't
don't mind
complain.
doing that. I had 20 minutes to sit and read my book at the library before I came home. But,
So if
It's fine with me.
like it,
people are okay with it,
Flexible.
I mean,
I have a hard stop at 7:30, but
Hard stop at 7:30.
yeah, but don't change things for me.
The meeting's to an hour, that's fine.
yeah,
Go past that.
we
it
can
gets-
try, yeah.
See how it
Let's
goes.
try it, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's
And
just, it's.
I gotta be out of here at 7:30 too, so.
so keep it
try
at
it.
6 or move it to 6. What are we doing?
I mean, we could try it at 6:30 for the last 3 months of the year, or whatever, the last quarter, and then if it's like not feasible, we can revisit.
Circle back in December.
Even 6:50, I have a really hard time making it here exactly at 6, that's why I'm always a little late. Just
Give it a shot.
good stuff.
Yeah, it's fine.
Do we need to vote on that?
No.
No?
So,
Who determined that these meetings were an hour and a half? I'm just curious, like where that hour and a half came from.
You know, it was always an hour and a half when I started, and Steve or Keith, who was the chairman before, we would go from 6 to 7:30 on the dot, and then everything would wrap up within that time period. How it became an hour and a half, I couldn't tell you. It was just, that was parameters that everyone could give it. And like me, people had other commitments later that day. So,
Yeah, I mean, I was
Yeah.
just curious. I mean, I think, you know,
Shorter meetings are better meetings.
yeah, like if we know we only have an hour, we won't get
an hour is good.
sidetracked and we'll just stick to
Yeah.
the agenda. I mean, not that we don't anyway, but
Make it an hour.
if it doesn't get done in an hour, we table it to the next meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Great, everybody's good?
Yep.
Awesome. Anya, turn it over.
Should we, I'm tempted to do last, just so I can just take up whatever time is left.
Sure.
I'm wondering if we just wanna make sure
yeah.
everyone gets their
Santina,
updates.
do you wanna give an update?
Yeah, sure. So just in case you don't know me, my name is Santina Duranco. I'm the Assistant Director of Health for Community Health at the Health Department. And I've been sitting at this committee since the inception. I normally phone in because I have 3 tiny humans who have very elaborate schedules. And so I've done it from karate and the baseball lines, but I'm gonna really try to be here in person. So the only thing I wanted to mention, and I think Sarah, you and I emailed you about our survey that's going on. So every 3 years, the health department conducts a community health needs assessment with our local health departments and the hospitals. Part of that is a survey with stakeholders. And there's 2 different parts. One of it is a phone call survey. So if you go on our social media, you'll see we're really urging people to answer the phone. And it's an extensive 45-minute survey that the entire state kind of goes through, and it's random phone calls. And you know, it asks people everything from their health to their safety in their community and everything in between. This year, we said, in addition to that, let's condense it to a 5-minute survey so that we can get more responses in addition to this larger scale survey. So we do have a short 5-minute survey, and how it's applicable to this group is it does ask about sidewalks in your neighborhood. And we have a goal of getting 1,000 Fairfield residents to fill this out. Right now, we are the highest in the state of respondents with about 350. Yes, we've beat Norwalk. So we are really, really pushing this out. So if you guys have a mailing list, if you can share it on your social media, even your personal social media, we really want to get as many responses as possible. We set up shop at the senior center. We have a paper version of it. So we were helping seniors fill this out, both on the computer and on paper. We hope to set something up with the library to kind of get in front of people there. So we're really trying to push this out. If you think of any other venues we can go to have staff at to get people to fill out a survey, please let us know. But if you can just help us get it out, that would be much
I
appreciated.
did send it out a couple of times on the Bike and Pedestrian Committee
Awesome.
Instagram, but
Thank you.
Oh, I was just wondering where I could get the link.
I can send it to the
Survey.
entire committee.
Is it a link or a QR code?
It's a link, yeah.
Okay, and then, so I click it and I get taken to this 5-minute survey?
Yep, it's like a Survey Monkey.
It's self-administered.
Yeah, and it just asks your zip code, so we can even break it down based on that. And then, you know, it does ask questions about like, how's your health? Can you pay for groceries? Like things like that. But it does specifically ask about like sidewalks in your town. So kind of like the big topics we made into easy questions and just to kind of give us something. So it goes until August 31st, but we're trying to urge people like, hey, once you get it, fill it out. And it's throughout the entire state. So in case you have someone on your mailing list or you share it with anyone that doesn't live in Fairfield, it's throughout the entire state. There's a drop down to pick your town and then your zip code.
Is it something that could go out in the first selectman's?
Yeah, it's gone out in his, we sent it to all state with the local reps, all of the boards, so RTM, Board of Finance, Board of Health. We're really trying to push this out.
Moms of Fairfield,
I have not posted in Moms of Fairfield, but if you wanna post it and share it.
please, sometimes.
Turn on a fire.
Post it up.
Let Amy post it for you.
So if you wanna share it from our health department, we are posting it on social media at least once a week. If you wanna share it, that would be great. But you know, the more voices, the better. And we'll get an update on August 1st on how many surveys we've gotten. So Data Haven is the home. Yes, Mark, your favorite person, is, you know, taking all of this data. We will get that data once the survey is completed.
And what's the goal of getting the data? What do you plan on doing with it?
So from our community health needs assessment, we develop a community health improvement plan. So again, it's with the 6 surrounding towns and Bridgeport Hospital and St. Vincent's Hospital. And we develop goals based on the needs of the community. So it tends to be substance abuse, mental health, healthy lifestyles, which includes physical activity, healthy eating, behavioral health, child well-being. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, may I have your name for the minutes,
Yeah,
please?
David Becker, the
Oh,
COO, interim
Hi.
CFO.
Oh, were you presenting
just
that?
talking about you.
Vincent?
I was at South
Okay.
Benson
Okay.
today.
I could barely tell from the little
I
screen
normally
who
don't
was
come
on
to
there.
meetings 'cause I go to a lot of
I'm
meetings.
sure you
and
do.
I have 2 little kids, but they're at sleepaway camp and my
Oh.
wife is away tonight, so I was in the building, I saw them
Okay.
there. and
So this is what you're doing with your time.
So I had an opportunity to try to come to more I can, cause obviously complete streets and all of the bike ped and connectivity is a major thing, hence, yes, I was on South Benson and been all those meetings this week.
Could you, Fred, I gave a very short summary of the call, but I was 15 minutes late and I feel like I
Yeah.
missed the context for like how those drawings came about and what the status is.
Yeah, so that was after the sort of current sort of very draft rendering, I'll hedge it a million ways, right? But we've actually had a number of internal meetings over the last, call it month, it's probably been a
Okay.
little bit longer, they've picked up frequency,
Okay.
engineering, probably longer than a month, but engineering also, you know, we've thrown just for South Benson, you know, that particular location, like many, you know, yes, a comprehensive, you know, the SS4A piece will really start to try to, like we're trying to do with other things, like even like, you know, like our master, you know, flood mitigation plan as an example. We have plans, we have a sense, yes, sometimes louder or right in front of you or actionable, but putting these things into really comprehensive plans and then vetting them, scoring them on lots of different, you know, matrices, you know, give us the opportunity to then be able to make, I think, just, you know, better decisions. But one of the things we're also looking at right now on the complete streets, and I use that term in a very broad sort of way, is for instance, with that grant, we didn't get the pilot piece, but what we started to realize in some of the discussions is we've already begun piloting some of these. And the state's gonna pilot some, if you take like the road diet as an example. And we have many instances where we can go in and we can put a lot of different things out into one area. So when you look at what we're talking about now doing on the South Benson, you can put a lot of different methods into that. And not just pilot them, but take a stretch that's really high visibility that there's different approaches as to the need based upon perception, data, or what that may be, but we know that if you live in this town, you've probably driven on that road, you've probably driven on a lot if you go down to the beach at all. I grew up right around the corner from there, very familiar with it. And so what we're trying to do just on South Benson, and I think we laid that out section by section, they went in and they surveyed. It also highlights the difficulty of it. So if you look at you know, a stretch of road with a sidewalk, we're gonna put 2 5-foot sidewalks all the way down the road. that may not be possible, like just, I mean, just fences are in rights of way, okay, well, okay, was it one fence or is it the whole way down? Or some instances, it actually is very possible. Actually, you've got a 4-foot sidewalk on one that runs, most of the stretch. So to widen that by 1 foot, and to maybe make an adjustment with the snow shelf, you've got the blueprint already there. So engineering, it was a really good exercise. Also in, how long and what would it take for engineering to go out and get all of that and to pull all that down, and then and sort of walk through what it really is gonna look like to comprehensively look at one stretch to another. And there's other things, there was, and somebody else had told me, and I mentioned in the meeting, Bill Hurley goes, no, that was me years ago, but somebody had mentioned that they had talked about, I don't know, 10 or 20 years ago, doing some sort of a center piece by the entryway in, maybe even adding like a sign, like the entry into the South Benson, whatever it might have said, and it would have been up at Old Post, and I guess historical, I think, kind of jumped at it, and maybe some others, and they just sort of backed away, and that was that. So it's like, well, in those conversations, you start to realize, just how long people have been dealing with that. So then you peel it back and you say, okay, well, where are the lines for that? Just because somebody says something over here doesn't mean we can't maybe make that adjustment here. Do they have a say or not? I mean, there's lots of things to peel back, but that then prompted a discussion of maybe adding possibly like a small median, piece at the entry. But that has now prompted, and we didn't cover it much today, but I'll talk about it, but it's prompted questioning that intersection, South Benson Old Post as a whole. If you're entering from South Benson onto Old Post, I mean, like, if you want intersections that, like, I try to just turn away from. Sometimes I just go, I'm gonna make a right, like, forget this, like, because people, you just can't, and you're just like, am I gonna be the accident today? So what we are looking at is, could you potentially, because you actually have a lot, it actually is narrow, it's wide, and it really widens. What's the possibility of potentially actually adjusting that whole intersection? And there's a number of methods to doing that.
Awesome.
So,
Roundabout.
well.
I don't think it's quite big. They'll tell you it's not big
Not
enough.
sure. I know, I mean, I grew up in town, so I'm not used to roundabouts. My wife's, a Boston girl, and I spent a lot of time up in Boston and the Cape, and there's roundabouts everywhere. I've become a big fan of them, so anywhere that you can do them, and I am a believer that you do not need very much room at all, like some very, very tight and functional roundabouts. But one thought that we actually had with that was coming actually on your right-hand side. If you're on South Benson, you're coming up the Old Post on your right-hand side, possibly bringing that out some and making some adjustments just in the orientation, which would at least create a massive improvement from a sightline perspective. And there's a number of, there's things like that. So South Benson's actually a really interesting piece, and then it addresses, you peel back the onion, you talk about, it's not so much for the neighborhood going per se, except for a lot of the neighbors who walk down, but then you start to look at where the guard shack's placed in that turn. It's like, raise your hand and try to get a fire truck through that. It's like, it's a mess. And with cars, and then on the way back out, it's, I've done it with a 50-foot trailer behind me, and it's really, really not a good setup. So one thought is actually we might look at, could you at the mouth of, sort of the Jennings, could you possibly widen that, create a better lane structure for one lane that has beach stickers and they get the wave and they go. The other lane, as if it bunches up for, for the day passes or any other questions. And then that would actually also enable you to do more with sidewalks on one or both coming across, so that you could actually enter, because one of the pieces that we've heard is, if you are a pedestrian coming in there with cars and the bunching up, there really isn't a great place for you to go. So that's kind of a longer, South Benson, but it's actually pretty exciting in that if you start to count how many different measures, I'm a big proponent of the painting striping, different colors, really making it uncomfortable. I use Cambridge, Mass as an example of an older city that you would say, oh, well, you can't do any of this, and like I feel really uncomfortable when I'm driving there. That's a good thing. So I think it's we're looking at that as another sort of element. Raised crosswalks is another one. I grew up in town, and of course we've never had them. I've always been told that as an adult and as a firefighter I would ask about them, and everyone's like, no. So we're not necessarily talking about true, right now true speed tables or speed bumps, but possibility of doing raised crosswalks, which would be which would be something we could put in. You get a lot of people would actually be able to use them and or drive over them or any variable to it, and then try to of course apply those out. So
is this mostly an engineering exercise? How feasible is doing,
No,
60% of what you proposed?
no, no, we're pretty set that if we can pull this off from an engineering perspective, that we want to bring it forward. I mean, cost is a concern in that, everything I've outlined is anywhere from $1 to $2 million. Take your sort of guess, and we know with this stuff, it usually goes on the higher side of it. So if you were to take a per lane mile, that's a lot to put in and to do that. But I would counter that with, we've been looking for actively for probably a month and a half. We've thrown out all sorts of different ideas of where, all right, what if we go from here to here, we add the connectivity and we do that, and there's a lot of barriers that make it really hard to actually do that and then put all the different things in. South Benson actually seems to be a place that, even with some of those right-of-way barriers, is doable, engineering wise. As you're on, right, you saw it, like it's actually doable, and you can get a lot of different things in it. So you need to have these items, in my opinion, but I think you need to have a lot of these items on display for the public and in active use, to then be able to say, okay, in your neighborhood, we're gonna use these two elements to do that. Okay, well, where can I go find them? You can go to Cambridge, Mass, and they paint the lines this way. Oh, well, that's not good. Hey, you can go down to South Benson and you can do that. Oh, where can you go for the raised crosswalk? You go to South Benson, you can see that. One of the bends, I mean, just no guarantees it's gonna make it. They're trying to figure it out, but one of the issues we have is how many driveways. So you can do the center, a narrow center median comet sort of entryway in and run it to a point. But you then have to, there's the Benson Place bend where you continue. So there's too many driveways to just realistically, most likely to drop one of those in. We're looking at the feasibility. So I said, okay, well, what else can you put there then, right? I mean, I've seen this, I've seen that. So then Mega pulls up like photos of, okay, well, what if we put that there? But that also becomes another thing you can show somebody. Oh, we can't do a median, but we can do this. And it's, it's prompted all sorts of questions. Like, we're gonna do another median somewhere, someone has to maintain the median, right? Well, okay, so now we're gonna look at what are the options without necessarily putting, like plants that be watered per se, right? Like, what type of greenery would you put in? Not anything new, but things that you have to start to think about. It's one thing when you have them in, like brook lawn, and then be, water for a period of time and then some amount, and then what happens to them, right? I mean, there's all these different elements that fall apart. So if we're gonna start to try to put more of those, we need to recognize you have to be responsible for it, which, by the way, is a safety thing if you're gonna put somebody in the road doing that, or maybe it's something that's fake but looks real, or something that really after like 6 months of watering is almost always gonna take, or are we, what are but these are prompting those questions. And I think putting them into action is big, so.
Where's the budget? Whose money?
Yeah, we're,
Local or state or federal?
this one, I believe, is ultimately gonna be a local one. And I think we recognize that you're going to need, some of these we're going to have to do if we wanna make movement, and then some of this, as much as you can get the the federal money, doing projects like this and taking plans like that grant and coupling them together and then going asking for the bigger dollars. If we're not invested in it at a local level and we're not out and at least making headway and showing action and showing examples, we're gonna be better for it to go and ask for the targeted dollars, of which I think we know there's a lot, state and fed, but barring, the SS4A was the public helping us in the room doing that, so I mean, if somebody has it, but otherwise, I think we're talking local, so. And we're moving around, I mean, you know, obviously we have we have sidewalk money, so some of that will come out of that pot, some of it'll be an extra allocation, but you have to invest in these things.
Is there a timeline?
I would say that optimistically for next season, like a spring item, but you know, that turns into the following spring, don't shoot the messenger on that. I mean, there's complexities, but yeah, aim high, and we're also, again, we're trying to find, I mean, I could have cited other intersections we looked at where you'd be 3 years out because of the complexities. These are some of those items are not, especially with local dollars, are actually pretty actionable. So if not, I would envision it would be in process during that season next year, but it is certainly a priority area too, so. In fact, I don't want to dominate.
At the end of South Benson, as you go into the beach.
Yeah.
You're talking about having a separate lane, maybe for tag holders, et cetera. A big factor down there is the number of people, out of towners, who come down. I ain't paying $40 and doing the 3-point turn. The other thing is a big thing down there. So you had a divided thing. Now you got a guy trying to do a 3-point turn.
No, that's a really good point.
And the other thing is, you also would be great to have outside the gate, maybe along the fence where the skate park is, like a waiting area. You see kids standing in the street, standing on the curb all the time, waiting for mom to come in to pick them up. Especially when if the kids went into the pool, mom said not the pool, into the beach, the mom said, I'm not paying $40, I'll see you. We're a regular Fairfield mom, I'm just coming down to pick your kids up. So a waiting area for kids to get picked up, and how you handle that 3-point turning, that's
No, those are two, yeah, I've gotta tell you, never turned around there and I've never stood and waited there, so I would have never known.
Yeah, I just walked in on 4th of July and I thought I almost got run over like 3 times.
Yeah, no, it's
I feel like walking from the beach back to the marina, so we cut through the parking lot, but there was no way to avoid the cars to get from the
Yeah, there's-
concession stand, you have to walk along all the parking and then go past the guard shack. So every time a car came, we had to stand up on the curb.
I'm sure.
No, that's really helpful feedback.
One other thing you might want to consider, I know the town has a consent decree from DEP to reduce the amount of impervious surface by 2%. So right now, they're tagging homeowners that are doing construction projects, and the gain on that is very minimal. But if you looked at the paving at Jennings Beach in that parking lot, and took that out and turned it into a pervious surface with like reused millings, there's a huge gain there.
Like they're tagging homeowners, because I have like 3 houses in my neighborhood and they've completely paved their entire
No, but-
backyard and I'm in wetlands.
On any new construction, you have to take the roof drains and put them into a water retention system. So that costs the homeowner minimum another $5,000 on the project. And what do you gain? I mean, you're taking a really small area and doing something with it. But if you really want to make some progress, go to a parking lot like at Jennings Beach that's now pretty
they're up
much
to broken
asphalt.
asphalt.
Yeah, get rid of it. and
So-
just-
Or even next to, across the street from
That's what we do
Aldi's.
Here is
Yeah,
buy
So
millings from paving companies and
So I have
put
to-
them down.
I have to turn around the pickup area in the notes, and then I will look into more on that end.
Yeah, it's engineering is the.
But I only caution, and this will go past my current knowledge base, although I'm gonna learn quickly on it, but I believe that most of what you're talking about, even if we did that, because of the sort of the attention that's now been placed on like drainage, runoff, permeable surfaces on your own site and how they want to address it, that even if we weren't under that, most likely in most instances are still pretty, because the concern that is happening, like if somebody builds a house, they don't plan for that, then they get runoff, but if you address that in advance and keep it on your site, I mean, that's just a shift that's happening kind of beyond Fairfield, but it is interesting if we address it there, was there any sort of give on the other side of that, but
Yeah.
yeah, you'd never, I mean, what we know, I mean, with flooding runoff, things like that, you'd never now just pave a parking lot of that size or design that, we would have come up with some other method to it, right? So, but I'll bring that back as well.
I mean,
Yeah, it's all helpful.
related, like, I think it would be really useful for us to just see the designs and I'd rather provide feedback earlier before
Yeah.
things are final, like, I don't want.
No, we're not at like, I mean, that was like a first, I mean, they had, I looked at it, I think like last night in that form, and then edits on my phone, like walking into it this morning, because this is, they've been working a lot of that,
Yeah.
long hours. I know Bill and Mega, and the rest of the team has had to go out and spend a lot of time, and they're just constantly, trying to get to that point. So it's early draft, and we're moving the pieces, and that was what you saw, today was from 2 days ago, and okay, great, like go mark 2 days ago, and like come back quickly with this and this all the way down the line. And I, from my perspective, I just keep asking for trying to be within reason, but like more stuff. So in the sense that I want to, personally I want to see this, and I'm a believer that like the more that we have in this within reason, the more that, and I know quite the question on that call had come up about, okay, so if we want to be really actionable, could we do like just this and this right now? One of the problems is that once we touch the area, we're gonna hit a bunch of different things, particularly on the ADA side and accessibility, where it's gonna trigger other things. And to some degree, like what's brought up about everyone about things in that site, I'm a believer that when you go in, you do it right the first time, and you take kind of, I get there's a time to piecemeal, but like if you're in there, it's gonna be much more cost effective and much more time ROI on just people's time effective to go in, get it, and then say, okay, we're good. So, this is less about, we're gonna maybe just do this, the sidewalks now and then come back in a year. I think it's more, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna try and do it in one shot the right way. And then, and be fully compliant when we do it as well, so.
Thank you, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's working on it.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
We were doing town department updates, so if you have one for Sustainable Fairfield.
Hiding because my dryers just went on, it's really loud. So for Sustainable Fairfield, the big thing is the recertification for the town for Sustainable CT, which is due August 20th at noon. Not sure why at noon, but there you go. So one of my interns, I think Abby Jacobs, might have talked with somebody because she's updating the sustainability plan. We're also working on doing that. We have biking and walking, and we have air quality, and then we will be finally updated on our sustainability plan. So she had sent me some edits, so I'm assuming she connected with somebody. Is that right?
I think Anya sent updates to you.
Yeah, you're talking about the email that I sent you with some other ideas we can accomplish? No.
No, so I don't know where she got these ideas from. So I will send that email to her and talk to her about it.
Good ideas, we sent them.
So, sorry about that. I don't know why. Um, okay, those are the two big things with sustainable Fairfield. Then with, forestry, just because we also work with you. We are putting out a quote unquote an ad kind of thing to get volunteers. We're having a hard time maintaining pocket parks, as they're called. I was actually just talking with Bill Gerber about that. You know, the scouts want to put them in, or people want to put them in, and they like to beautify something, but then next year it's boring because it's already put in, and the weeding is not the fun part, or the watering's not the fun part. So we're working on getting that secured. And happy news, I think, Sarah, I mentioned this to you, that I was looking to sign on for the Trust for Public Lands initiative, the 10-minute walk to a park. And Bill called me about the pocket parks, and they're doing an article about connectivity or something, so you may want to talk to them, because I'm assuming it's in their next newsletter. And he said he did want to sign on for the 10-minute walk to the park for Fairfield, which when we talked, we thought this would be a great kind of a lever to let people know we're committed to, you know, making green spaces available to everyone in a very local way, you know, and you know, this is why you should, you know, back our complete streets policy, or this is why you should back, you know, more, you know, making the pocket park, something like that. So that's my hope, at least. So those are the two updates from the two, forestry and sustainable Fairfield.
Awesome, thank you. Anya?
All right, so we, I think we can get this done by 7:30. So I wanted to do an exercise around getting on the same page about what some of the values of our committee are. I feel like sometimes some of the debates we had, it feels like we're not aligned, and I thought this would be helpful to bring us some alignment. So one of the things I suggested everyone read is Vision Zero, but of course we can also draw upon, you know, our knowledge of like best practices around safe street design. So assuming everyone's done at least some thinking about it, I wanted to kind of first give everybody 2 minutes or so to just write down their own thoughts about what you think could be an important value for our committee. And after we've had some time to kind of think individually, we'll go around the table, and I'd love to hear some thoughts, and I'll write them down, and then we can kind of call the list, the list we make together. I sent some example values. Should I bring those up again? Would that be helpful? I think what are the two that I sent? I'm gonna go back to the email that I sent. Actually, hold on 1 second. I'm just gonna paste them into the Google Doc and share them. Okay. All right. Let's. Oh no. Can I share my screen? Oh, good. I can. Okay. So this is very small. So this is kind of some example of values. This idea, this is one of the fundamental ideas of Vision Zero, kind of where I drew that one from, is believing that most traffic crashes are preventable through a better road design and enforcement. And I really like, I think it might be worthwhile discussing changing even the way we talk about, you know, car accidents, and using the term, you know, crashes, because you know, the idea is they're all preventable, they're not by accident. So that's one kind of sample value we can discuss. Another one is the value of community. So we believe that creating walking and biking friendly streets is an essential part of building community. And the reason I wanted to suggest that one is because we had a conversation about what's the purpose of this committee? Is it like, you know, if we really want to make bikers and walkers safe, we can just take them off the road, you know, and just put them all in cars. That sounds like it would go against kind of our basic ethos. So that was just one way of kind of addressing that. You know, one of the fundamentals is we want to get people out there in the community. So these are kind of a couple ideas, and I'd love to hear some other ones that I think everyone in this group can come up with. So unless there are any questions, I'll just set a timer for 2 minutes and kind of have a couple minutes to write down our ideas. You look like you have a question, Mike.
But no, I got this and I never really had a chance to look at it, so I'm coming on this cold here.
Yeah, and don't worry about like wordsmithing things too much. I'm just curious what's top of mind for everybody and have a discussion around that. Okay. Timer for 2 minutes.
At work, because I had a slow day.
A few more seconds left. Sorry, I should have put that background music. Does anyone else need more time? Okay. So I was thinking we go around the table. I'm just gonna write it down so we can visually see all the ones that are coming up, and then we can talk about them as a whole. So I'm gonna volunteer. Can I volunteer you,
Oh,
Sarah?
sure, yeah.
Sure, right in front of me.
One of the things that when I first started getting involved with this stuff is like the focus on cars and drivers. And then really trying to realize that like it's not just about the cars on the road, so there's people and like what do we want to be putting people over cars and like trying to peel off that car focused mentality. So even when we're talking about like behaviors pedestrians and cyclists should be doing on the road, we should also be enforcing like what drivers should be doing on the road, like what the laws are, what the behavior should be, and not just focusing on the people that are outside of like the giant steel cages driving at high speeds.
Thank you, Sarah.
So the three that I wrote down were prevention and safety.
Great.
Yeah. Well,
Three you wrote down,
prevention, slash
prevention.
safety,
And was the third.
yes.
Oh, I heard three.
Equity and inclusion and.
Oh, I see, that was one, prevention and safety, got it, that was like prevention and safety is two.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay, that's
Well, I
okay,
kind of
that was-
think of those as parallel, right? Like preventing crashes enhances safety. I mean, in a way, they're all kind of in that is related to health also. But not even just health from freedom from, worrying about, like I almost got hit crossing Old Post Road at the Y. to get here from, yeah.
Almost got it there too.
But my teen daughter doesn't wanna drive, partly because he sees all the craziness out there, but prefers to walk. And he was just lamenting the other day, he's like, oh, like I can't walk anywhere here, like everywhere I need a car to get to. But there's no safe way, like he doesn't feel safe riding his bike or walking, and walking would be more helpful for him, right? Cause he sits in school for 8 hours a day and he isn't on a team.
So that's How does that summer?
That's health, and then just inclusion, right, is everyone, I guess not everyone has a car, maybe not everyone wants to drive everywhere, maybe some people can, and then there are people with different, physical limitations. I mean, I see there's an elderly couple that lives on my block and, they're literally limited to walking to the stop sign. They can't cross the street because it takes them so long to get across the street. It's too dangerous for them, so then they go down to the next corner, and like, that is their world. It's extremely limited in it, because they can't safely get anywhere further. And there's also that guy that drives, he's got the special box in the Aldi's parking lot, right? But there's some people on, the mobility scooters. And until recently on Villa Avenue, when they put those new ramps in, right, like he had to ride in the street. So while I agree with the car-centric thing, like I think there's room for both.
Yeah.
You just have to make it safe for both.
Well, and it's like the vulnerable road users too, right? Like your children, your elderly, you're disabled. Making sure that the road works for everyone.
Right.
The only thing I'd add to Amy's on the equity piece is also, like a lot of times, you don't necessarily think about like the bus routes, where the bus stops are, like on Post Road in front of Blackstone's, it's in the middle of an island, a grass island with no safe way to get to the other side. And then there's like the equity piece with that too, because not, most of the time it's minority populations that are riding the bus or.
Oh, you're talking about Greater Bridgeport Transit.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about school buses.
No, Greater Bridgeport Transit.
Want to elaborate on the health piece at all?
Well, I just think if it's safer for people to walk, they'll get out and they will actually walk more, right? Like I live 2 blocks from the store, but I drive for when I need something because I'm not about to cross Melville Avenue, then Greenfield, and then Tunxus Hill, because that's 6 times that I'm going to risk getting run over, right? But on a beautiful fall afternoon, like why shouldn't I be outside, right?
Yeah. Maybe sustainability should be looped into that too, right? Like there's the climate piece, like if you are driving, I don't know, we can talk about it.
I'll go. So, and I'm kind of following up on that health piece,
Sure.
that we should, we want to work to ensure an environment that's conducive to active lifestyles.
That's great.
Sorry, when people are looking, I'm the worst typer.
Santina happy, right?
So am I.
Got it in there?
My boss laughs at me.
remember.
Grant.
How do you get anything
Grant
done if you make
verbiage.
typos? I'm like, I swear, it's only when you're watching.
It's plural, healthy and then lifestyles.
There you go. That elaboration. Sandy?
Yeah, sure. So one of the core values I saw is authentic engagement. And
Interesting.
I just think communication and outreach in trying to implement this thing is gonna be pretty important to, try and get input from more than just the people in South Benson who have a real issue, we wanna try and hear from people all over. And there's a lot of vehicles for doing that with social media these days that ought to be used to the best advantage.
Can I add something to that? 'Cause so you want to get input when you're developing it, right? But once, say you do that project down at South Benson, that's kind of a demonstration project, right? For the town, so people can see what's going on. But you need to get feedback from the residents, like, do you like this? Do you want this? Do you think it's worthwhile? We're gonna spend several $1 million, probably, if you were to do this around the town, millions of dollars. But people, is that what the town residents of Fairfield, people are paying taxes here, want? They may say, great, do it, or they may say,
It needs to be dimensionalized. This would cost you an extra, pick a number, $125 a year in your tax. I'm just making a number
But
up.
I think to piggyback on
That's a tough
what
one.
Sandy was saying, right, it's education.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm sure if you ask people, do you want this median in front of your house and it's going to personally slow you down, like, no, you're not gonna be happy about it, but, or you're not gonna be happy that the town is gonna take an extra 2 feet of your front yard to put a sidewalk in. But I think if we look at ourselves as educators, right, because I think you experienced the same thing before we got involved in our respective neighborhoods. I had no clue like what the options were and what was appropriate and like, you know, and now that I know, I'm like, oh, like it was eye-opening.
Yeah. It changes your mentality, just.
Right. What, yeah, like you said, like you've got to get away from car centric.
Yeah, and it's educating ourselves too, right?
To close that loop though, you need to get feedback once you've done it. And do all the education, all that stuff, at the end of the day, you know, you put it out there for a few years, okay.
Well, and I've seen
Is this
with
thing
those,
being,
what they've done with those demonstration activities in other towns is they'll have like basically lawn signs that have a QR code by it that you can go scan, and then it'll take you to like a survey link or something where you can solicit feedback from the community.
or like, I know with bike routes, right? Strava is an app that you can use to track your rides, right?
Yeah.
You can buy the data, actually, Connecticut DOT, I don't know if they still do it, but they were buying the usage data from Strava,
Oh,
whatever
Yeah.
it's called. And somehow they, because when I worked in Norwalk, we brought them in, talked to them, and so people who are riding bikes are tracking, some people are tracking the rides, but a lot of people don't. So how valid is this? And they have a way to take that and like extrapolate it to the general population somehow and tell you whether those bike lanes that you're installing are actually being used. And then, you know, so if they are, great. If they're not, then
yeah.
you save a lot of money by not putting them down there. You should know that.
I really like your point, especially about asking feedback after the fact. I don't know how to word this correctly, but like I'm hesitant to take too much feedback before the fact. I mean, we should hear it, but I feel like people are so resistant to change. I feel like almost like I would almost add this as a value, although I'm not sure how exactly to word it. But I think we should assume people are resistant to change, and we'll definitely get a lot more negative feedback than we want. And then we have to build a tolerance for how much negative feedback is acceptable before we move forward or something. But then following up after, I would like to think the reception will be a lot more positive even from the original naysayers.
First selectman's got to figure out how much negative feedback, because it could make him lose his job if it gets.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
something to that.
It is,
What can you
absolutely.
get done in 4 years before that? I don't know.
But it's also, you know, oh, that neighborhood's getting it, you know, oh, who lives there, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, the normal stuff.
So the plan addresses some of that. I mean, your neighborhood is ranked, you know,
Yeah.
4, so.
Use data
you know,
to
this
show-
We were talking about
metric,
before, yeah.
year 6, you're gonna get, you know, this mitigation piece, or, okay, we're gonna begin the conversation with you in 2 years, you're on the roadmap. I mean, you know, this is this whole endeavor of complete streets in a town of our size and with the complexity in the neighborhoods that we have. I think I said it before, and in my notes, I had down moonshot, you know, this is a moonshot goal. We've got a couple of them in town at this point. But this is a big one like that. But you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the
Absolutely.
more you can quantify out and plan out and present, that'll help. I think that'll help, because you're right, like, you know, it's like, well, maybe I want something in my neighborhood, but I'm gonna have to wait, well, you know.
And we talked about like the paving schedule, the same kind of thing. There's-
Yeah, like,
Based
yeah,
on
exactly,
the
the
condition of the
paving's-
road. So
yes.
it's,
it's gonna take this many years, but you're on the plan. Right now, I mean, nobody, you don't know if it's South
Helter
Bend,
skelter.
Reading, it's.
I tend to think much more tactically, so these are all subsets, things that already exist, so.
Looking at it.
Under, I think prevention was, like a 2A that would be, prevention is related specifically to children, child safety. Both biking, walking, being aware of the dangers around automobiles. They can't see you, kid. I get the e-newsletter from papers all over the country in Omaha, Nebraska. Like some SUV plowed over an 11-year-old riding a scooter. And it's like, I think of all the scooters I see around town walking. I walk 4 to 6 miles a day, every day. And I see kids out there just zipping around. I tend to trust their instincts because they're like light and nimble, but they're also going 30 miles an hour. And I don't think they've ever had an accident. They don't really understand.
But they don't have a clue.
Just running into a telephone pole is gonna be catastrophic.
Yeah.
So I don't wanna be a
It's just
down
a
with
matter of
that.
time.
No, but it's a,
Can we add a bullet about just like considering all users of the road? And so that includes
By
children.
the way, 1 and 4, I think, are kind of all working together.
Sorry, kind of created another
Yeah.
one in equity and inclusion.
Yeah, no, I think the two, just an observation, they kind of work together. Making sure that
Sorry,
we're
when you-
treating
talking-
walkers and bikers, this, as with
What you mean.
the same
I know, and
equity.
I had- I
You don't
just-
need to change
just
it.
said that A second ago.
They're being thought of in the same level as the automobiles out there. The other sub thought was kind of under education, which was I discovered at the beginning of the pandemic, and the town listed in their site, there are like 52 different open spaces in this town. And I made a point to walk, I've walked probably 40 of them. Some of them are so small, they're like a single acre, not worth it. But like Springer Glen there at Mill Plain and Brookside, that's like a 30-acre plot or 25 acres that, get lost in there for 45 minutes. And I think it's a great advantage for the town. And like, I grew up in suburbs out in the Midwest that don't have spaces like that. And literally within walking distance of my house, I can be in, if not nature, at least a more natural surrounding that has an established walking path. And I don't know if a lot of people in town know that. I think it'd be great to promote that and where what's available just down the street from them.
Maybe, I don't know much about the 10-minute walk to the park, but maybe that could.
Yeah, oh, that'd be a part of it, absolutely.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating.
I think that's something we could add to our social.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I had a lot of the same stuff, education. First thing I wrote was behavior, awareness and behavior, or behavior and awareness. Yeah, I agree with Mike that yes, the car is the biggest, most dangerous thing in the world. Get all that. We all do. But to his point about the kids not being seen, I mean, I see it all the time. It just drives me out of my mind. People walking in the street with the baby stroller, she's pushing the stroller, he's out there, and they're all walking with their back to zipping by traffic. And you get to the stop sign, and say, hey, you really should be on the other side, seeing the traffic coming at you. Bleep you.
yes.
Okay. Get hit, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's just,
Association, yeah.
it's just, and you see, and the kids with the scooters, I mean, it's just a matter of time. I mean, they go whipping, whether on the sidewalk in downtown or zipping through stop signs along Old Post Road, South Benson, you name it, Reef Road. 3 on a bike, on the scooter, whatever they call it.
And the electric bikes too, I mean, they're.
Oh, yeah, and you don't hear them
Those
coming.
things.
I was out at the end of Long Island in a beach, old school beach town. I saw scores and scores of kids on bikes. This is 4th of July weekend, not one kid on an electric thing.
Oh.
Every single kid was pedaling.
Good.
I was like, guess they weren't entitled Fairfield kids, I don't know. But, every kid, it was, nobody was, and there was plenty of kids out on bikes that made you as a driver aware of them, so it was sort of like, one of the problems with kids on bikes now was there aren't enough of them. When we were kids, everybody's out on a bike on the street, so everybody was aware of it, driving, you were more cognizant of it, It's the chicken and the egg thing, but I think it needs to be awareness and education, obviously for the drivers, but also for the pedestrians and the bike. Bikes are allegedly supposed to stop at a stop sign. That's not gonna happen, but But if you hit a guy on a bike, guess who's in trouble? You know, so but it's everybody's road. And all the parties involved need to know what the factors of safety are.
Stop signs are interesting, like some states don't require bikes to stop at stop signs.
Connecticut does,
Oregon
though.
being one of those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the-
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
yes, it does, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, I have torn feelings about that, because stop signs also put bicycles at a disadvantage, because they have to stop, they have to start again, they lose momentum,
Right.
there's a hill, it's hard, you know.
Suck it up.
You know, and
Coming downhill, I'm waving at the guy, not stopping.
Yeah. Well, it's like being on an interstate, if you don't understand how a tractor trailer drives, you know, when he's coming downhill, get out of his way. He's got him, he can't stop and he needs to make momentum. And the other thing we talk about all the time is we don't have bike lanes in this town, we have bike routes.
Right, yeah,
We keep talking about bike lanes and that we don't.
we don't.
And until we have them, it's not safe for people out there.
Yeah, but let me tell, I ride all the time, right? Putting a line down the street.
No, I mean that with
No, a protected bike lane.
buffered bike lane.
Yeah, that's a tall order. Yeah. You know,
So I wanna make sure we end on time, so we have a few more minutes, we still wanted to ask if either of you wanted to add anything.
And then on the bike lanes, that's a topic as well. It's gonna require, one of the things from a width perspective means a lot of areas that cars, even though it may not be a lot of cars, but you're gonna have to go no parking most likely, though we're looking at options.
Don't really wanna go down a
Yeah.
rabbit hole right now.
Yeah, so.
But we can say a lot about, if you have any values that we think we should be thinking about as a committee when we have these discussions.
I think some of them I've already said, but I truly think you feel uncomfortable.
I like that
So it
one.
is vehicle centric, but it's really for the benefit and more pedestrian, because it does the complete opposite on the pedestrian side. It makes you feel extremely comfortable. And the other piece is broadly, I'm for, moonshot goals. But I would cage that with, when possible, using existing principles versus reinventing the wheel. Which makes
What do
those
you mean, yeah?
moonshot goals more realistic, but still broad, like we're gonna tackle the whole town, but we actually can tackle the whole town. And I would just say, but from a narrow perspective, more day to day, feasible and high ROI. And I use the ROI, yes, it's ROI investment, but it's ROI on like impact.
I love that. Thank you.
I assume that your moonshots are focusing on town-owned roads, staying away from the state roads for all the agita that causes.
Yeah, I think they're a partner. The more I'm naive because I know it's tough, but I know, I mean, obviously the town piece is gonna be more in our control, but if you're not trying to tackle both, you're not gonna get to the whole town. So if your true moonshot is, even if it's 4 years from now, or it's the whole town, your partner can do that. And I do think that they're receptive. I mean, we've had sidewalk discussions around the road diet, and there's logic as to why they're not doing it, but they're willing to come back. And if you try to work with them through that process, I think you get to that goal. They're just gonna be longer with some of their stuff than ours. But they come with the big, like the feds, they come with.
Budgets,
They
yeah.
get the money, yeah. So.
Where does the state representatives fit into that equation?
Like our elected
Yeah, like,
delegation.
These folks, yeah, when they go to Hartford, get us the money, how would the state?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
$50 million for Stratfield.
yeah, they have, and I think that the better that we do to have not just a plan, but then also shovel-ready projects. So, I mean, to your point, like Stratfield, but you could make the same argument on South Benson or whatever the next one is. Okay, we don't have $2 million, but it's sitting on the shelf. A big thing, this isn't just for this, but in general that we're talking about. And I know, W directors, really driven that home, and I totally agree, is the more money, even if we feel like we might be wasting, but feel like we're spending money, for design on something that might sit on the shelf for 5 years. That's something that when the opportunity's there, you pull off, and people, shovel,
1000%.
right. So we're talking about, really in a lot of areas, our sewer system, we've got, projects on the sewer system side that might be $50 million. So what if we spend $2 million to our downtown resiliency, phase 1, $800,000, it's probably gonna be around another 800 to $1 million to get phase 2, 3, and 4. You're talking about possibly a $30 to $40 million endeavor. But if we spend the money, we get to the 2 million threshold, and we spend the next 5 years saying to every place under the sun, we need this money to go and do that. It's been kind of proven. I mean, look at Bridgeport and all the WPCA money they just got. It wasn't just because they're Bridgeport and disadvantaged and all that. They were also ready for it. So we're gonna start, I think, doing that. And this is like a home run moment. If you have the plan, then you have the projects, start getting them in the queue. Then you go to the delegation. Money, sometimes the money is scarce, sometimes it's like
Appears.
yeah. So I think that's sort of a strategy, and again, feedback from you guys on prices for that and all that, but they're there.
I just want to add just the value of partnership that this committee has with, the community, with the town departments. A lot of the projects that the health department has been able to fund is through the partnership of PED, the community, engineering, DPW. So don't undervalue your group and the power that you guys have in the industry.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And like those projects, while it's not millions of dollars, in the past, we've had a group list of projects we wanted. And the state has come to us and said, hey, we have extra funding, do you want it? And yes, you have to spend it in 2 months, okay, done. So just having that stuff.
Thank you. So I think as far as this exercise, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean this up. If it's more legible. I have a few others I might add, but I don't know if we have time to discuss them. So I'll clean it up. I'll send out a Google Doc. I'm hoping maybe if anyone has any feedback, just asynchronously can comment in the Google Doc. And then next time when we get together in September, it's a cleaned up document that we've all seen. And we can vote and kind of narrow this down to, I haven't quite decided, but definitely not more than 10, maybe fewer.
Anna, thanks for pulling this together.
Yeah.
Work that probably, I hadn't been done, I've been on the committee, I think, for 10 years, and we never really sat down and revisited this.
I
So
think this was a
good
good
exercise,
yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Oh, and quick call out, she's gone, but Mary has been participating in the chat and sending links to all the parks. So
Okay.
yeah, we need to share those links before, oh my God, there's so many of them. Okay, I'll copy paste them and I'll give them to you so you can send them out.
Sounds good. Alright, any new business?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
That's new business.
Adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.